Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tuesday's Tips. I'm Jeremy Bailey, your flying realtor. This is week 2 of our top 10 tips you should do when you're considering selling a home or buying a home. Let's jump on over to the studio where Suzanne Caldera from Guaranteed Rate Mortgage is here with us. Suzanne, for being on this episode of Tuesday's Tips. As you remember, we're doing our top 10 tips for buyers and top 10 tips for sellers. So we're going to start with our number 2 tip for sellers, and that's declutter, declutter, declutter. So in case I didn't really get my point across, it's declutter. Nothing makes a home feel small and just somewhat weird and just the space doesn't flow right than very cluttered spaces. And that could even be down to your closets. Now, that's the last place I want you to get to, but go around your house, stuff you don't need. If you're really going to keep it, get it in a pod, get it in a storage facility, or just sell it, donate it, or get a dumpster. But empty that house out. It needs to look, I like to say, it kind of needs to look like nobody lives there, or like it's a staged home. That's what we're approaching. We want to make it look like a staged home because we want to try to get the biggest bang for your buck, and I'm trying to get as much money for you. So please declutter your home. And if you want advice as to what you should do to declutter, never hesitate to reach out to me because I do many pre-listing consults where we talk about things like decluttering, and I won't spoil a couple of few tips that are coming up next week and the following weeks, but decluttering, and I do consults all the time. So reach out to me and call me. Let's jump on over to the buyer side, and I'm going to toss this over to Suzanne, but I'm going to preface it with it's basically no new credit inquiries. What does that mean? Suzanne, help us out here.
In telling you no new credit inquiries, the reason for that, Jeremy, is we don't want you taking on additional debt. So don't fall for the, I know we're still in COVID land right now. Maybe you're not at a store and they're offering you 10% off or 20% off if you get a brand new credit card, but do not take any additional debt, because when you get the pre-approval from your lender, that's based on that snapshot of the debts that you have, the debts that you disclose, the debts that maybe got uncovered, and not any new debts that are going to come up. Now, if your car dies, immediately, don't pass go, immediately call, text, send a carrier pigeon, yes. Send a carrier pigeon to your lender to let them know, hey, my car's dead, I'm taking out a new car loan. A good lender can tell you, hey, as long as your payment doesn't go up by 100, 200, 300, whatever, you'll still be okay. But if you're not disclosing that, that can sometimes become disastrous in a transaction. So no new credit inquiries.
Yes, and we see how you reverted back to step 1, call a lender. If you're ever in doubt, call your lender on anything to do with credit and purchasing. And I'll preface this with, let's not go out and purchase furniture before the closing. Does that kind of apply to this as well, Suzanne?
It absolutely does. Until you are officially closed. There are additional credit pulls that happen. They're what are called soft pulls, and lenders, we call them UDMs, undisclosed debt monitoring. So I'll get emails that'll say, hey, we uncovered X. And most times we're still okay, but we don't want to uncover anything. No. So until you have the keys physically in your hand and the mortgage is and the house is yours, don't apply for any additional debts. And I get it, because I'll see credit inquiries and I won't see the credit card yet. Somebody will say, I went to Cardi's or I went to Raymore and Flanagan and I did a 0 interest thing, but they're not going to charge me until the furniture is delivered. Okay, well, they're going to charge you. You're going to have additional debt.
Yes. Yes. I'm getting stressed out just listening to our tips here.
So we all have PTSD from it, because we've had those moments, and any good lender has their questions that they ask because of those landmines that they've uncovered. And I've got my landmine questions. We've got do's and don'ts. We've got things that'll go out throughout so that it doesn't happen. But sometimes good people will do things that they think are innocent and things that they think won't affect them. But please don't.
Please don't. I'm going to tell you a quick story. Many years ago, it had to have been 7 or 8 years ago, I had some new clients that were interested in purchasing a home. So I met with them. They were going to purchase it with their son, adult son, all working. They all rolled up separately in these brand new vehicles and stuff. And I'm looking, I'm like, okay. I'm like, that's not the end of the world. But then as we started talking, we're like, oh, by the way, we make tons of money. We're working. We've been working for a couple of years for, I'm making it up, electric boat or something like that. So I knew they most likely made good money. They're like, oh yeah, we did. So we just all went out and purchased new cars. And the son was like, yeah, and I just got a motorcycle. And I'm sitting there shaking my head, going, oh, this is not gonna end well. And I was like, call a lender. Step one, call a lender. Lender calls you back. Yeah, no, they've extended themselves. Yes, they make good money and they've used their debt to income ratio. They've used it all, or they've used enough of it where, yeah, they're going to need to pay some of those things off first. And they had many years before they were going to pay those off. So I feel the pain. That's why I get a little anxiety. That was the worst case. And luckily it happened before I really started working with them. But the worst case scenario is, you get up to the closing, that debt to income ratio was close to the max. They go to Cardi's or one of the major furniture, Bob's, whatever it is, Rainbow and Flanagan. They bought their furniture, but they don't have to pay for it until after the closing. But they do that soft credit pull that you just mentioned. And right before the closing, the deal goes and nothing happens. No new home.
Nothing is done until the ink is dry and until you get those keys. Everything gets checked over and over and over again. So
all right, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Tuesday's Tips. Be sure to tune in next week for week 3 of our mini series of the top 10 things you should do when you're buying a home or selling a home. Remember to keep your wings level, and I gotta fly.